Cody Garbrandt hurt. Many people, including TJ Dillashaw, believe Cody may be close to pulling out of their fight. Cody has been flown to Germany for a back procedure instead of attending the UFC summer kickoff presser. TJ is already saying if Cody pulls out, he would be willing to drop to 125 pounds to fight Demetrious Johnson in his record-breaking title defense. Well, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. I want to see what happens with Cody. Cody had put something out on Facebook, and I thought that this fight was off because Cody announced it was off. He said, I'm out. I can't do this. I'll see y'all later when I can prepare and get in the gym. And he told a little bit more to the story. He said, look, my back's been driving me nuts for a while. Had some work done on it. Went through the recovery process, got back in the gym, hurt my back again. So Cody had announced that the fight was off. When a fighter announces a fight's off, right? That's how it's always worked. Well, the UFC came in, I think it was Dana, and he said, hey, we've actually got somebody that does this, a real specialist. He's out in Germany. We'll pay for it. We're going to get you out there. And I'm so confident in these guys that I believe that fight's going to happen. I believe everything's going to be fine after whatever happens, whatever procedure happens in Germany. So they haven't pulled that fight. Even though Cody pulled it, and Cody's opinion's got to matter, right? We got to say the guy in the fight tells us the fight's not happening. We got to listen to that. Even though Cody pulled it, the UFC has not pulled it yet. They're saying, no, actually, we know something about this facility in Germany. Let's give this a shot. Speculate that on that either way, but TJ offering to go down to 125 pounds, that's kind of compelling. That's not going to do some record numbers. I get that, but that is a little bit compelling. First off, can TJ get to 125 pounds? Man, that's low. That's lower than he was in college. He was a college wrestler. They have a 125-pound weight class. He didn't compete in it. Competed at 133, even did some matches at 141. So you're talking about him getting even lower as a grown man than he was when he was a kid in college. Hard to do. Can many of us do that? Do many of us weigh less now than we weighed 10 years ago? Pretty interesting. And him versus DJ is an interesting fight for that division. It's hard to come up with interesting fights down there right now. It just is. It's hard for DJ to be in an interesting fight. It's hard for even for TJ to be in an interesting fight. There's some guys. There is some guys with Dominic Cruz. There's that storyline. Uriah Faber left, so we lost that one. Cody's an interesting fight for TJ because they have the legitimate backstory of being former teammates, but there's not a whole lot of interesting fights down there. I think that will qualify. Former champion, 135 pounds versus the current champion at 125 pounds. I think it qualifies as interesting. And it's interesting that TJ's even talking that way. And it comes back to the point I made a moment ago about St. Pierre. Would anybody complain if TJ, a former champion, decided to drop down into a weight class, cut the line, and become the number one contender? Does anybody complain? No, that makes sense. He's a top contender in a weight class right now. If he switches weight classes, why does he lose that status? Why does he lose it? UFC women's 125-pound division, a UFC 125-pound women's division was announced. And this will be on the UFC's Tough Series. The winner being crowned world champion. I like it. That's how they did the first ever 115-pound weight class. They put them in tough. Anybody that said they could win, they vetted them, they fought them to get into the show, they put a tournament together. Carla Esparza came out of it. I think it's right to crown her the champion. I like how they're doing that. Do you guys remember when Jose Aldo came over? Now, Jose Aldo later proved that he was the best fighter in the world. I will concede to that. Do you remember when he came over and they had a press conference and just put the strap around him? They did the same thing with Ronda. Brought her in the company, no fights, no proof, and just put a belt around her. Not necessarily wrong with their backstories. One being the Strikeforce champion in Ronda, one being the WEC champion in Jose. Not necessarily wrong, but to say a person is the champion of an organization that they had never fought in That's a little bit weird. Say they would have lost their first fights out. They would go down in the history books as a champion of an organization that they had never won a fight in. They would go down in the history books. That would have been a little weird in hindsight. So instead of doing that, putting them through a tournament, I like it. I don't think every fight's got to be on pay-per-view and you got to draw something out for a couple of years. Let's do a tournament. That's how all sports are done aside from ours. Every World and Olympic Games is a tournament. Every NCAA bracket for every single sport is a tournament. The playoffs for football, basketball, baseball, hockey, they're done in a tournament. I love putting together a tournament and then crowning somebody champion in a division that doesn't have it. In divisions that do have champions, I'm a supporter of putting guys into that tournament and having them be the number one contender. We get so many guys that come out and they try to be the number one contender. The only way you can, I've done it too. I mean, the only way you can be the number one contender is to get the power of the pen and the influence in the office. That's how it happens in this sport. That's how it happens in boxing. That's just what we do in combat. But there is another way. Another way through competitive architecture of all these guys that are arguing, chomping at a bit and saying that they're the right person. Let's throw them in a tournament. And let's see who comes out of it. Pretty hard to argue at that point. I've always thought if you win the Ultimate Fighter, you should be the number one contender. That doesn't work. That falls short when you pay attention to commerce. Okay, you need to put on the big fights that are going to bring in the money and keep the doors open. You have to do that. We all understand that. This is a business. However, if it was done right, and particularly if you took sitting veterans and top contenders and put them into a tournament, you would do very good business. But whoever comes the Ultimate Fighter does go on and become contenders instantly. I mean, go through the list. Forrest Griffin, who won the title. Josh Koscheck, who fought for a couple of titles. Diego Sanchez, who fought for a couple of titles. Kenny Florian didn't even win it and fought for, 3 titles? Was number one contender 3 different times? I'm leaving out all sorts of guys. Look at this Robert Whittaker kid. People didn't even know who he was. Well, he won the Ultimate Fighter, and now he's in the argument for the number one contender. Travis Lutter came through there, fought for the world title, had good moments. Matt Serra came through there, became the number one contender, fought and won the world title. It's a hard tournament. It's a really, really tough tournament. Kelvin Gastelum came through there. Beat a world champion at 170 pounds, took out a world champion, Vitor Belfort, at 185 pounds. Getting ready to fight another world champ at 185 and Chris Weidman. I mean, don't act like the hammers don't come through that process. They do. They do. And I really think that would even be good for ratings. I love what they're doing this season. Have you guys seen the ratings? The ratings are really down, but this might be the best season of The Ultimate Fighter. It's really good. Storylines are good. The drama's good. Right, the Cody, TJ, Uriah thing. That's really good because it's real and they're hashing out some real backroom, locker room drama in front of our eyes. But you've got these fighters, we all recognize them. That's the one tough thing about The Ultimate Fighter. It takes a little bit of time. Takes you a couple weeks, 3 weeks, takes you a month of investment till you learn everybody, and now you're really in. The one thing that they're doing this season, we know all these guys. It's a great, great season. And there's some hammers. Whoever wins this damn tournament, oh, buddy, look out. Look out. Liddell and Hughes to return. Scott Coker is saying he will sit down with Chuck and Matt to see if a fight is even feasible. Let's pretend for a second a Liddell and Hughes comeback. Who would they face? Would Randy Couture be interested in something with Chuck? Would Tito or Rich Franklin be interested in something with Chuck? For Matt, maybe Hoist Gracie or Matt Serra. Ooh, that's an interesting one. Who would be the right type of opponent? I have no insight on that whatsoever aside from the Hughes portion of it. I do believe there was even talks, and I don't know where they went, but I believe there was even talks between Bellator, Matt Hughes, and specifically Hoist Gracie. I believe if Matt was to come back to fighting and come over to Bellator, that he would be matched up with Hoist Gracie. I have no inside information on that, but I believe that because I had heard that somewhere. Somebody had put an article out. Hoist had kind of responded lightly saying, yeah, I would do it. Matt had kind of responded, said, well, I'd like to redo that fight. Happened in 2005. So that's what I think would happen there. As far as Chuck goes, that one surprises me a little bit. A little bit that surprised me. I thought that Chuck was long done. I thought that he had put enough money aside. So I don't know what his motivation is there. I like it. I like it a lot. I think that's a really cool thing. I like comeback fights personally. I think you guys can relate. But I don't know who he would get matched up with. And then where would he come back? Would he come back at heavyweight? Would they put on a bit of a Legends fight, him and Fedor? I'm just throwing that out right now. Would he come back at 205? Would I get matched up with Chuck? I don't know. Would Chuck go over to Bellator? Would the UFC be interested? It's like, hey, if you guys are going to come back, instead of going over there, do it here. I don't know. I don't know what would happen there, but I think there is something there, particularly on Matt Hughes' side, because Matt Hughes has come out and flat out said, yeah, I'm going to come back. I'm real interested in coming back and finding a promotion to do it in. He's flat out said that. Now, there's some moving parts after that, but if somebody wanted Matt, it appears that he's available.